Sunday sound off, and our first hot topic of the night, which the fans aren't going to like very much, is any Royals player untouchable on the trade market? Les?
Boy, there better not be, because look, it's a dismal start to the season, and to have somebody that would be considered untouchable would mean that their value to the team right now is so extremely high that we're not even going to consider talking to anybody about the trade market. Who would that be? Who is that person right now? We know, okay, Hosmer finally started going the other way, which was the precursor to him pulling monster home runs. All right, great. He's on the right track. He has a hitting streak. He's starting to pull his weight just a little bit. But if you look at those career numbers, it's not like all of a sudden he's going to be the guy that we're going to hang on to just because he's going to be the rock of this team who they're going to build around. Look, if they're that good, then we ought to be able to get some value. Eric Hosmer on the open market, sure, he might be 100 to 125 million guy. He's certainly not going to be the 150, 175 million, at least statistically. There's teams out there that might pay it, but look, nobody can be untouchable right now, because if the Royals are going to stay this way and pick someone that is not touchable, if somebody is untouchable, then we are in for a long line of what we've been seeing lately.
All right, Blair.
Good question. I would think Salvador Perez will be a Royal for a long, long time. It's so hard to get an all-star, multiple all-star player caliber at that position. So I think Salvador Perez is untouchable. Danny Duffy's another one who I look at and think that the things that he certainly has said about being in Kansas City and when he signed his deal, I look at those two first. Everybody else, no, I think you entertain offers. Look, you entertain offers for everybody, but I think the bar is higher for Perez and for Duffy.
Soren?
I know most fans will tell you, look, if it's not nailed down, you can move it and that everybody can go. I remember when the Astros were really beginning their tanking session, which, let's make no bones about it, that's what they did, was tank to get high draft picks and rebuild it. But they never gave up Jose Altuve. And that's one guy that, Royals fans had their eye on, because, of course, they've been trying to solve the second base riddle since Frank White left town. So, that's a name that everybody wanted. But, of course, the Astros would never part with Jose Altuve. So you can have those guys that you don't want to go with. And I think Salvi and Danny Duffy, I agree with Blair. I think those are probably the guys. And from a position standpoint, everybody else on the pitching side can go. There's nobody who's a young core guy, so you can move any of those guys. And I think you look to the dirt. I mean, the guys who play in the dirt are harder to find. Altuve was a second baseman. If there's another guy, I think it's Mike Moustakas that you look to get re-signed right now, because he has power and he's hitting the ball well and playing a premium position, but his lack of physical conditioning and already one knee reconstruction makes you think twice about that one. So I really think you got Duffy and Salvi, and if you get the right offer for them, you'd move them even, but they're probably the two that aren't going anywhere.
All right, here's our second hot topic of the evening. We just talked about re-signing guys. Would any of you re-sign Alcides Escobar? I saw this last week. There's some rumblings around baseball that the Royals were thinking of doing this. Blair?
It's funny. I was at the game on, I think it was either Friday or Saturday, right, and I put something out on Twitter about Escobar. I think it was the game in which he started for 200th consecutive start, which is the longest streak in baseball. And so I put it out there. Is he, does he approach Freddie Patek as the greatest Royal shortstop? And some of the feedback was interesting. People have, there was more of an appreciation for Escobar than maybe I thought from the fans, and there should be. Look, this is he's a Gold Glove winner. He's a ALCS MVP. He's been an All-Star. I think he's kind of what you want at that position. He's what, $6.5 million player this year. I think there's probably a little bit more appreciation for him now than maybe you suspect.
So he needed to have a lower market value as well, right? I mean, he's just not worth a whole lot of money.
I think if the price is right, then yeah, you would look at it. But I think that's the key. I don't think he's worth the number that's hanging around his neck right now. And I'd be more concerned if they are trying to re-sign him. Does this mean that they're running away from Raul Mondesi?
Yeah,
I mean, this has been the guy that's supposed to be the shortstop of the future. And now we know how bad he struggled initially. The Royals, I've talked to people since he went down. They're still very high on him. They still think he's going to be a high-ceiling player, more power, better hitter than Alcides Escobar. My answer is no. I'd be really surprised if you make this move. To me, you want to get your guys in the positions you think they're going to play starting next year. And if you re-sign him, you're just blocking Raul Mondesi. To me, second basemen are easier to find than shortstop. So, no, I would not be looking to sign Alcides Escobar.
Les?
Well, I agree with Soren. I wouldn't look to be signing him necessarily right away. The situation with Raul Mondesi not doing well to start the season, I mean, being really poor offensively, probably makes Alcides Escobar have an opportunity to maybe hang around for one more year in Kansas City. I agree with Seren, too, as well. As look, if he's going to be the shortstop, if Mondesi's going to be the shortstop, which we know, that's what the Royals have groomed him for since the beginning. He was filling in a need while Escobar was still under contract, playing good defense, but his offense has been miserable. I think overall as a whole, this hasn't been by far his best year, so to speak. And so if they're going to re-sign him, if Mondesi continues to struggle, then maybe you get a one-year deal. Maybe it's minimal based on the close to or just below market value. I don't know that there's a lot of people courting him right now based on the couple of years that he's had. And so if Mondesi picks it up, the more he gets better, obviously there's not going to be any need for him. So this is all going to depend. If it's a one more year thing, it's all going to depend on how much faster Mondesi develops, because that's Mondesi's spot to take as soon as he's ready.
All right, our final hot topic, what type of impact will Jamaal Charles have with the Denver Broncos? Remember, Neil Smith left here and ended up getting a Super Bowl ring with the Broncos. Seren, what do you think?
None. He'll have absolutely no impact whatsoever, and the Broncos will go 0-16.
Nice.
That's what will happen there. No, look, as a Chiefs fan, that's what we want to happen. I think he'll have a minimal impact on the Broncos. I think really he's going to be like a third down running back. I think he might catch some passes out of the backfield. They want C.J. Anderson to be the guy, and they've got fumbling problems with everybody else behind him. So they know Jamaal Charles will know where to line up. They know he'll hold on to the football. They know he'll pick up the blitz, and they know he can catch. And I think that's the extent of it. I think any thought that he's going to be the feature back or really carry the load, I'd be shocked if he had a 100-yard rushing day. I wouldn't be quite shocked if he had a 100-yard receiving day, but I think he's a third down back in Denver.
Les, this situation for you, or a player who is spurned by one team, goes to another team, sounded like he has a lot of motivation to get back at the Chiefs.
Well, absolutely. And we've heard that, according to Charles, that apparently the Chiefs' version of how the rehab went wasn't the same as Jamaal Charles' version of the rehab. So, you know, it's interesting how that whole thing is going to play out. But look, I agree with Seren as well. He's a ghost of his old self. He's a ghost of his former self, just kind of in a shell. He's obviously not as healthy as he was when he was the most amazing back in the NFL. He was super electric, a super hard runner, could take hits and stay up. He reminds me a little bit lesser of a Walter Payton. I grew up in Chicago, loved watching Walter Payton take hits. He's not the same as Walter Payton, but there were signs of that. So I don't think he's going to be much. I think that he'll be a fill-in guy. He could be some leadership for maybe some young guys. But I know fans, ooh, Denver, they hated Denver. I don't think we have anything to worry about. He'll do some good things because he's still an athlete. I just think he's still not 100% healthy, nor will he be what he was.
Blair, do you think he will come back to haunt the Chiefs?
He could. Look, absolutely he could. It's funny how the city reacted to this. When we thought that Jamaal was heading to the Seahawks or the Packers, it was fine. Everybody was good with it. He'd done, he'd given the Chiefs, what, nine seasons, and and several good ones, several great ones. But let him go to the NFC and finish his career there, then bring him back and put him in the Ring of Honor here, and all will be good. But no. He goes to the Denver Broncos of all teams, and so the rhetoric I thought was really interesting this week. Jamaal had what he said initially at the press conference, and he had to backtrack it, and so it's different. It's definitely a different feeling toward Jamaal from Chiefs fans, and I get that. He's rushed for almost 1,000 yards in his career against Denver. Wow. I think it's up like 987 or something of his 7,200 total rushing yards have been against the Broncos. He's had great games against Denver. I would be surprised if we saw any of those types of games against the Chiefs.
Yeah, well, you're never going to win over the fans. You go and you say, John Elway was my favorite player ever. I always wanted to play in Denver. Oh, good gosh. Okay.